Good morning guys, Castillo right here. Today Monday, and we're gonna go straight into the news because I believe that this is gonna be the last time I report about this camera, because tomorrow this camera is going to be announced. So this morning I've learned that this camera is not going to have the 30 minutes limit recording that the Sony A7 III has, and also we're gonna have a very similar passive cooling system similar to the one that we can find in the Sony A7S III. So I don't know if you remember, but the last video that I've been covering, I said that this camera is not going to be like a Sony A7 III. And I think that this is where a lot of people are starting to get pissed off, because people are comparing this camera with kind of like a crippled down version of the Sony A7 III for a much more expensive price. Once again, we don't know the final price, but we know is that the camera is rumored to be maybe a little bit over $2,000. Now, I mentioned in my last video that this camera, the only thing that is going to inherit from the Sony A7 III may be the sensor, and the sensor we also learned last week that it's going to be a backside illuminated sensor, so it's going to be great in low light situations. But most of the technology that we're going to see in this mini portable camera is pretty much everything we like about the Sony A7S III, and minus the thing that we don't like the 12 megapixel sensor. So this one may be a mini A7S III with more resolution, not a Sony A7 III. And I think that as long as we start understanding this, we can also understand the capabilities of this camera and how powerful this little guy is going to be. Now, let's talk about the size, because, you know, a lot of us think that this camera is gonna be super tiny. And for what I was able to see, this camera is almost in size just like a Sony A7 III, minus the, you know, the top-down EVF part. So if you shave that off, you basically end up with a camera that is almost the same size as the Sony A7 III. So for those that are thinking that you're going to be compacting this camera too much, probably that's not gonna be the case. And for what I've seen, this camera is not any smaller than an A6000 camera. In fact, it's a little bit bigger for what I'm able to see from some of the comparisons that we had going on here. So I'm looking right now at the dual tone camera, the gray and the black. So first, you know, we thought that we were gonna have two different cameras with two different colors, but one version is gonna be all black and the other one is gonna be gray and black, which kind of like brings that retro vibe from the Fuji camera. Let me show you right now. If you're familiar with this, we're gonna get something very, very similar to this little guy right here, which is a camera that I really like, but with much better ergonomics, better video specs. We're gonna have microphone input, headphone jack, and apparently this camera is gonna do 24p up to 30 frames per second in 4K 10 bits. So now that is going to be really, really good, guys. So if the camera does 8-bit, this is going to be a big letdown, and I think that this camera is gonna, you know, it's gonna fail terribly. But I think that Sony has done their work, and chances are that we're gonna see 10-bit. Chances are that pretty much everything that we're gonna see in this camera is a lot of the guts from the Sony A7S III, hence the price. Okay, so let's start wrapping around our head that this is not gonna be a Sony A7 III camera. This is going to be a camera much more capable than the Sony A7 III. Chances are that the Sony A7 III, as soon as this camera gets announced, it's gonna drop to $1,800 or something like that. Which, in my opinion, the Sony A7 III is gonna continue to be a great buy in 2020, 2021 for those that don't need all that latitude to grade in post, and, you know, maybe some of the new bells and whistles, such as the touchscreen functionality that this camera is gonna have, the fully flip out screen, very angle flip out screen. Once again, we're seeing the same thing as we're seeing in the Sony A7S III, and we are gonna have the latest, you know, autofocusing system. We're gonna have probably all the 4K modes, but this one is probably gonna cap at 30p. That's what I'm assuming, because Sony's gonna wanna leave that, the much more advanced features for the Sony A7S III, which is the camera that costs, I believe, $3,500. I pre-ordered mine, I haven't got it yet, but that should happen very, very soon. So guys, this is what we know. No 30 minutes recording time. And also we're gonna have a passive cooling system. This camera's gonna allow us to shoot video for a long period of time. But another thing that I wanna mention is that this camera is going to shine where the Sony A7S III doesn't, which is in photography. Yes, you heard that right. This camera is going to be a vlogging camera, but this camera is going to be packed with photography feature. And why I say that? Well, for the simple reason that it doesn't cost Sony anything just to dump all those features. and you know, make this camera a little bit more appealing to a much broader clientele. Now we are gonna have, this is something that has been rumored, 10 frames per second with a mechanical shutter. Chances are that we're gonna do maybe 20 with the electronic shutter. And again, this is gonna be a very nice portable-ish camera, because like I mentioned before, it's not gonna be any smaller than the Sony A7 III, and if so, for some of the comparisons, maybe 2mm here, 2mm there, and of course, you know, if you don't have that EVF there, you know, they're gonna remove that completely. As you can see right here, had a flat look, and that's gonna be it, guys. So today I'm not gonna do a lot of editing. This is gonna go from the camera to the internet. So hope you had enjoyed this video. I'll keep you posted tomorrow after the camera gets unveiled and announced, and probably the internet is gonna be inundated with more reviews. So guys, I appreciate if you actually subscribe to the channel. I've been putting a lot of work just to bring this information to you guys. Thanks to the guys at Sony Alpha Rumor for, you know, keeping us posted with the latest. And until then, guys, see you in the next video.